Maya May's Kade adjusted the beam of her headlamp, illuminating the peeling paint and chain-link fence surrounding the corpse of KBEX-TV. For years, the station stood silent on the edge of town, a concrete tombstone marking the death of local broadcasting and birthing countless ghost stories. Tonight, Mays wasn't just exploring, she was broadcasting. Armed with her high-tech streaming rig, she aimed to pull back the shroud of rumor for her thousands of viewers, live. But KBEX held secrets darker than dust and decay, secrets embedded in the very airwaves, waiting for a signal strong enough to give them form. Let's begin the story. Get comfortable and listen closely. All right, night crawlers, you reading me? Maya spoke into her lavalier mic, her voice a practiced mix of excitement and nervous energy. On her wrist-mounted monitor, the chat scrolled furiously. Loud and clear, Maze. Audio levels, perfect. View count already climbing. Let's go, KBEX! Another spooky building? Prove it's haunted this time, Maze. Heard someone died in there. Maya grinned, the reflection sharp in the lens of her main camera. You heard the whispers, you saw the posts. Tonight, we breach the infamous KBEX-TV. They say it went dark overnight 30 years ago. Budget cuts? Scandal? Or something else? She panned her secondary shoulder cam across the station's brutalist facade, windows like vacant eyes staring into the twilight. Leo, my main man behind the screen, keep the chat lively but civil, yeah? And keep an eye on signal strength. This place is notorious for being a dead zone. Roger that. Signal's holding steady for now. Chat, behave or face the banhammer. Her setup was streamlined but effective. A stabilized main camera for the primary feed, the shoulder cam for dynamic angles, powerful LED panels cutting through the gloom, and a backpack containing the mobile broadcasting unit sending the signal out into the digital ether. Tech-savvy and meticulous, Maya knew her gear was her lifeline. Finding an entry point wasn't hard. Time and neglect had peeled back a section of the perimeter fence like a sardine can lid. She slipped through, her boots crunching on gravel and broken glass. The main entrance doors were chained, but a side door, meant for staff, hung slightly ajar, warped by years of weather. "Okay, team, this is it. Point of no return," she whispered, pushing the heavy door inward. The screech of rusted hinges echoed unnaturally loud in the sudden stillness. The air that hit her was thick, stale, carrying the scent of damp plaster, decaying paper, and something else, an odd metallic tang, like old batteries. Dust motes danced like phantoms in her headlamp beam. She stepped into what looked like a reception area. A curved desk sat empty, its faux wood veneer peeling away. Behind it, faded KBEX logos clung stubbornly to the wall. "Whoa," Maya breathed, sweeping her light around. Talk about a time capsule. She walked deeper, her footsteps the only sound besides the low hum of her equipment and the distant moan of wind finding its way through shattered upper-story windows. Lobby area. Feels heavy in here, doesn't it? Chat, you feeling the vibes? Definite creep factor 10. Probably just asbestos dust, lol. Getting some minor audio crackle, Maze, might be interference. Copy that, Leo. Could be the building structure, lots of metal. She moved towards a hallway labeled Newsroom. Pushing through double doors, she entered a vast open-plan office. Desks lay overturned, chairs scattered. Old computer terminals, relics from the CRT era, sat blindly coated in grime. Yellowed papers carpeted the floor. "This must have been chaos when they shut down," Maya narrated, carefully stepping over debris. "It looks like they just dropped everything and left." Her light fell on a desk near the back. An old coffee mug lay on its side. A dark stain spread across the particle board like dried blood. Under the desk, almost hidden in shadow, lay a single, scuffed black high-heeled shoe. Okay, that's poignant, she murmured, zooming in with her shoulder cam. Someone left in a hurry. Or maybe they didn't leave at all. She let the implication hang, playing to the camera. The chat buzzed. Told you, someone vanished. Probably just clearing out junk people lose shoes. Keep moving, Maze. Viewers are loving the atmosphere. She continued her sweep, her initial performer's confidence mingling with genuine unease. The silence felt watchful. Deeper in the newsroom, near a bank of darkened edit bays, her main camera light flickered erratically for a few seconds before steadying. "Whoa," she said, tapping the housing. "Bit of a gremlin in the gear tonight, Leo." Yeah, weird. Power levels look fine, battery full." Maya frowned, but kept moving. She approached a doorway marked Studio A, on air. This was one of the main broadcast studios, the heart of the old station. The air here felt different, colder, denser. Static seemed to prickle at her skin. "All right, night crawlers, this is what we came for, the main stage. Let's see what ghosts of broadcast past are waiting for us inside." She reached for the door handle, the metal icy cold under her gloved fingers. The feeling of being watched intensified, a prickle crawling up the back of her neck. She pushed the door open, revealing a cavernous darkness beyond. The darkness inside Studio A was profound, swallowing the beam of her headlamp almost greedily. Maya flicked on her powerful handheld LED panel, washing the cavernous space in stark white light. It was breathtaking in its decay. "Holy," she whispered, her voice echoing slightly. "Look at this place." Massive dinosauric television cameras, draped in dusty plastic sheeting like shrouds, stood sentinel on the stained concrete floor. Thick snakes of cable snaked across the ground, disappearing into wall panels or leading towards a raised control booth overlooking the studio floor. Remnants of a news desk set lay splintered in one corner, faded blue paint peeling. Scaffolding for lighting rigs hung precariously from the high ceiling, casting long skeletal shadows. "This is incredible," Maya narrated, panning her main camera slowly across the scene. "You could almost smell the hairspray and cheap coffee. Imagine the live news broadcasts, the local talk shows, everything happening right here." She walked carefully towards the center of the room, her boots crunching on unseen debris. "Generations grew up watching programs that came from this very spot. Now it's just silence." "Wow, this is epic urbex." "Any idea what the last broadcast was, Maze?" "Still digging, history buff. Records are sparse. Maze, signal holding, but the audio fuzz is intermittent." "Noted, Leo," Maya replied, her attention caught by the control booth at the far end of the studio. Its windows were dark rectangles overlooking the studio floor. "Let's check out where the magic happened, the nerve center." She began walking towards the booth, panning her camera across the empty studio floor. Her handheld light swept across the dusty concrete, revealing old tape marks indicating where sets used to be, scuff marks from heavy equipment, a general sense of emptiness. She was commenting on a particularly large, dark stain near the center of the floor, maybe spilled paint or old oil from one of these beast cameras, when it happened. The live stream feed, displayed on her wrist monitor with a slight delay, suddenly convulsed. It wasn't just static or a dropped frame. The image tore, pixelated violently, then snapped. For perhaps 2 blinding seconds, the view wasn't the empty, decaying studio floor Maya was currently illuminating. It was the same studio floor, the exact same perspective, yet sharper, cleaner, yet somehow grittier, tinged with an almost monochrome harshness. The lighting was the stark, flat illumination of old broadcast studios. And it wasn't empty. In that fleeting, horrific window, the feed showed frantic movement. 2 figures, blurry but distinct. One seemed to be falling, slumping over something low, maybe a console or piece of equipment that wasn't there in the present. The other figure stood over them, a silhouette against the harsh studio lights, one arm raised. Something long and thin glinted metallic in their hand.
A pipe, a wrench, a weapon. There was a palpable sense of violence, of sudden, brutal impact. Then, just as abruptly as it appeared, the image snapped back. Maya was still looking at the empty, dusty floor through her camera viewfinder. Her monitor flickered back to the normal, stable feed of the present-day studio. She blinked, momentarily disoriented by the screen flicker. "Whoa, did we just lose signal for a sec, Leo? That was a nasty glitch." Her earpiece exploded. "Maya, holy shit! What the fuck was that? Rewind! Check the clip! Check the clip now!" The chat erupted into pure chaos. "What the fuck? Did anyone else see that? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god!" "Hoax? Staged? That looked like old footage spliced in." "Get out of there, Maze!" "Video Geek, compression artifact? Packet loss? That was too clean for interference." "Panic mode! I saw a body!" Maya froze, her blood running cold. Leo never lost his cool like that. What clip? Leo, talk to me. What did you see?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady for the audience, but her eyes darted nervously around the vast, empty studio. The silence suddenly felt suffocating, menacing. "Downplaying it isn't going to work, Maze," she heard Leo say, her voice tight, clearly speaking off mic while frantically typing. "The chat saw it. I saw it. The feed, it flickered, but it showed something else. Right where you're standing. It looked old, like old TV footage, but bad, really bad." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. She quickly switched her view to the live feed delay on her monitor, scrubbing back a few seconds with trembling fingers. There it was, the violent tear, the flicker, and then the image, grainy, stark, the struggling figures, the weapon glinting, the slump. It was undeniably Studio A, but decades ago, caught in a moment of pure horror. Her breath hitched. "Oh my God!" she whispered, the sound caught by her mic. She looked down at the dusty concrete beneath her, the exact spot where the grainy image had shown violence erupting. The air felt thick with unseen residue. Folks," she stammered, turning back to the main camera, her face pale beneath the headlamp's glow. "Okay, wow. Clearly we experienced some kind of major technical malfunction. Interference, maybe? Some old broadcast signals bouncing around? Leo's checking the logs." She was grasping at straws, trying to project calm she didn't feel. "Leo MDT, private message. Maya, this wasn't equipment. It was perfectly synced. Same angle, same spot. That was something. Get out of that studio." Maya swallowed hard. The performer in her warred with raw, primal fear. Leaving now would fuel speculation, kill the stream's momentum. But staying felt monumentally wrong. The studio seemed to watch her, the shadows lengthening, the silence pressing in. The ghosts of broadcasts past felt suddenly terribly present. "Okay, Nightcrawlers," she said, forcing a shaky smile. "Deep breaths. Let's move towards the control room. Maybe we can figure out what caused that interference from there. Stick with me." She turned, casting one last terrified glance at the spot on the floor, unable to shake the horrific afterimage seared into her mind. The show had to go on, but the nature of the performance had irrevocably changed. It wasn't just about exploring decay anymore. It was about surviving whatever signal had just bled through time.
Maya cut the stream short. Her usual energetic sign-off was clipped, her face tight with poorly concealed fear. She practically ran out of Studio A, the image of the glitch replaying in her mind's eye. The walk back through the decaying halls of KBEX felt longer, darker, each shadow seeming to writhe just outside her headlamp's beam. Back in her van, parked a safe distance away, she slammed the door shut, leaning back against the seat, breathing heavily. "Leo," she said into her headset, her voice trembling slightly, "upload the full stream recording, highest quality possible. I need to see that again." "Already on it. Clips are going nuts online. Your regulars, yeah, but it's hitting broader forums now. Tagged hashtag KBEX glitch, hashtag real or hoax, hashtag maze stream." Hours later, back in the relative safety of her small apartment, Maya sat hunched over her editing rig, Leo on a video call projected onto her second monitor. They had isolated the glitch sequence. Played back frame by frame, the 2-second anomaly was chillingly clear. "Okay, freeze it there," Maya commanded. On screen, the grainy, monochrome image held steady. The perspective was undeniably from her camera's position. The layout of the studio in the background, the position of the door, the acoustic paneling on the wall matched the present day, just newer, cleaner. In the foreground, the scene was brutal. One figure, likely male from the build, was slumped face down over what looked like the edge of a low equipment rack, the kind long since removed. The second figure, taller, stood above, arm completing a downward swing, the glinting object, a heavy metal pike, Maya now realized, blurred with motion. The aggressor's face was lost in shadow and the low fidelity of the image, but the violence was unmistakable. "It's the same spot," Leo murmured, his face pale on the monitor. "Same exact spatial coordinates. How is that possible?" Maya zoomed in, pixelating the image further. "It can't be." She pushed her hair back, frustrated. Signal interference? Some weird harmonic interference from dormant broadcast gear? Maybe someone hacked the feed, injected old B-roll. Injecting footage perfectly overlaid like that, matching your exact pan speed and angle in real time, Leo countered. "Maya, the processing power alone. And why? Who would have that footage? It doesn't look like anything ever broadcast." "Then what?" Maya slammed her fist lightly on the desk. "A ghost. A literal ghost messing with my H.264 encoding." "Maybe not a ghost like in the movies," Leo said slowly, scrolling through search results on his end. "But an echo, an imprint. They talk about residual hauntings, strong emotional events leaving a mark on a place. KBEX shut down suddenly, remember? The official story was budget collapse after losing network affiliation, but there were always rumors." He started reading. "Okay, digging into old local newspaper archives, forums discussing town history, lots about the financial troubles in the early 90s, layoffs, yeah. But here, mentions of employee disputes becoming heated, an article about mismanagement complaints, and this..." He paused. "A vague police blotter entry around the time the station went dark. Incident reported at KBEX property, investigation inconclusive. No names, no details." "Inconclusive," Maya repeated flatly, meaning they either found nothing or they buried something. "There's also this," Leo continued, sharing his screen. "It was an obscure forum thread from years ago. Someone claiming their uncle worked at KBEX, said there was a fight that got way out of hand, mentioned someone going missing right before the closure, but everyone assumed they just quit and left town after getting fired." A missing person, a violent struggle captured on her feed. The pieces clicked together with sickening precision. So we accidentally captured evidence of a 30-year-old crime? Maya felt a wave of nausea. Through a live stream glitch? "It sounds insane," Leo admitted. "But look at the footage, Maya. Look at the chat logs. People saw it. This isn't just us." The clip was spreading. Maya checked the analytics on her channel, the notifications pinging relentlessly. Views were skyrocketing. Comment sections were battlegrounds. Believers versus skeptics, digital forensics enthusiasts trying to debunk it, horror fans reveling in it. Her niche Urbex stream had inadvertently captured lightning in a bottle, or perhaps something far more sinister. Rational explanations felt increasingly flimsy. Signal interference wouldn't create such a specific, coherent scene. A hack seemed too complex, too targeted, too perfect. What remained was the unsettling possibility that they had stumbled upon something paranormal, but not a spectral apparition, a technological haunting, a psychic scar tissue embedded in the location, agitated, somehow made visible by the specific frequencies and digital nature of her live stream. A signal ghost, as Leo started calling it half-jokingly, born from trauma and technology. Sleep offered little respite that night. Maya dreamed of static, of grainy black and white images flickering behind her eyelids, of the glint of metal and a sickening thud echoing in an empty studio. She woke up exhausted, but with a gnawing certainty. She had to go back. It wasn't just about the views anymore. Although the sudden explosion of interest was a powerful lure for an ambitious streamer, it wasn't just about debunking or proving. It was deeper now. An obsession had taken root, intertwining with a cold thread of fear. She needed to understand what she had captured. Was it a digital echo of the past? A warning? Was the station truly haunted, not by spirits, but by the data of a forgotten tragedy? And crucially, if broadcasting had somehow triggered it, what would happen if she did it again? "Leo," she said into her phone the next morning, her voice resolute. "Prep the gear. We're going back to KBEX. "Maze, are you sure after what happened?" "I have to," Maya replied, staring at the frozen frame of the glitch on her monitor. The shadowed aggressor, the slumped victim. The digital ghost had issued a challenge, and Maya, driven by a dangerous cocktail of curiosity, ambition, and dread, felt compelled to answer. Maya chose to return during the day, partly for perceived safety, partly because the stark daylight filtering through the grimy windows might offer a different perspective, perhaps revealing mundane explanations previously hidden by shadows. But as she approached the decaying KBEX building for the second time, gear heavier, resolve fortified but brittle, the place seemed even more imposing under the flat gray sky. "All right, Nightcrawlers, we're back," she announced into her mic, her voice lacking its usual easy confidence. "Round 2 at KBEX. After the technical difficulties last time, we're here to investigate further. Got some upgraded kit today, hoping to get to the bottom of that bizarre signal interruption." She showcased the new additions: a sensitive EMF meter, directional microphones designed to pick up subtle sounds, and an extra battery pack the size of a brick. Leo was online, monitoring everything remotely, his tone noticeably more subdued. The chat was a frenzy of anticipation, skepticism, and morbid curiosity. Leo Mod entered chat. "Signal's good, Maze. EMF baseline is low for now. Chat, let's try to focus on observation this time, less panic spamming." Ghost Hunter X entered chat. "Yes! Back for the truth!" Skeptical Sam entered chat. "Okay, Maze, show us something concrete. No more convenient glitches." Fear Feed entered chat. "Be careful, Maya. That place is bad news." Inside, the atmosphere felt subtly altered. The silence was still heavy, but now it seemed expectant. Maya retraced her steps, heading towards the newsroom and then Studio A, the EMF meter held out before her. "EMF levels are normal range so far," sweeping the device across dusty desks and defunct equipment. "Nothing out of the ordinary, yet." But as she neared the entrance to Studio A, the meter's needle began to twitch, the digital readout climbing slightly. "Okay, getting a little spike here, right outside the studio door. Could be old wiring in the walls, but..." Inside Studio A, the change was more palpable. The air was distinctly colder than in the hallway, goosebumps rising on her arms despite the layers she wore. It wasn't a draft. It felt localized, unnatural, particularly near the large shrouded cameras and the spot where the glitch had occurred. "Definitely colder in here," she noted, her breath misting slightly. "And the EMF is higher, fluctuating between 2.5 and 5 milligauss. Nothing extreme, but definitely elevated compared to the rest of the building." This time, the disturbances were less about overt visual anomalies and more insidious. As she set up one of the directional mics near the control booth, she heard it, or thought she did. A faint sound, almost like someone typing quickly on an old keyboard, echoing from deeper within the station. "Did you guys hear that?" she whispered, freezing. She signaled to Leo. Leomod entered chat. Heard something. Faint, like clicking. Could be debris settling or rodents. Sound Sleuth entered chat. Definitely typing. Clear as day on my headphones. Rodent Expert entered chat. Nah, rats don't type like that. Too relic. Maya strained her ears. The sound faded. She shook her head. Probably just the building, she said, unconvinced. Later, while examining the damaged news desk remnants, a heavy door leading to a side corridor creaked shut off-camera. She spun around, light beam cutting through the gloom. Nothing. Okay, that was not the wind, she stated firmly. The chat agreed. Her equipment started acting up again, but differently this time. The battery on her main camera, fully charged just an hour ago, suddenly dropped to 40%. What the hell? She muttered, checking the connections. Leo, power draw issue on cam 1, significant. Leomod entered chat. Confirmed. Voltage draw spiked inexplicably a minute ago. Near that main studio area again? Affirmative, Maya said, feeling a knot tighten in her stomach. The energy, whatever it was, seemed concentrated here, and it seemed to be interacting with her technology. Driven by Leo's research about the missing employee and the inconclusive investigation, Maya began a more targeted search, less random exploration, more forensic investigation. She focused on areas near Studio A and the adjacent control room. In a small, forgotten office behind the control booth, mostly filled with mildewed broadcast schedules, she found it. A heavy metal filing cabinet, coated in dust, its drawers locked tight. Jackpot, she breathed. Using a pry bar from her kit, she worked on the cheap lock. Metal groaned in protest before snapping open. Inside were rows of hanging folders, surprisingly well preserved. Old personnel files, performance reviews, inter-office memos. Okay, Leo, start cross-referencing names if you can. She pulled out folders carefully. Many were mundane. Vacation requests, equipment logs. But then she found a cluster of files related to disciplinary actions from the early 1990s, complaints about erratic behavior, arguments, and one name kept appearing, David Miller, a studio technician. There were multiple written warnings, mentions of escalating conflicts with management, and a final ominous note about security involvement pending further investigation. Then nothing. No termination notice, no resignation letter. His file just stopped. Around the same time period, Leo found online mentions connecting Miller's name, albeit tenuously, to the missing person rumors. Someone on that old forum mentioned Davey M. having a huge blowout with a producer right before everything went quiet, Leo relayed through her earpiece. Returning to Studio A, Maya examined the area where the glitch occurred, her eyes now searching for physical traces. Near the spot where the figure had fallen in the glitch, she noticed it. A section of the concrete block wall, low down near the floor, where the plaster was newer, rougher, a slightly different color. It looked like a hasty patch job, covering an area roughly 2 feet square. She ran her gloved hand over it. It felt wrong, solid, but somehow resonant. Someone patched this wall, she murmured, showing the chat. Why patch a random spot on a studio wall in a building about to be abandoned? She tapped it lightly. It seemed to cover damage. Impact damage? Her final significant find came inside the Studio A control room. It was a labyrinth of dead consoles, cracked monitors, and tangled wires. Dust lay thick as snow. Tucked away on a shelf, overlooked amidst the chaos, was a small cardboard box
containing a few 5-inch audio reels. Most were unlabeled or marked with show titles, but one had a strip of masking tape with hastily scribbled handwriting. Studio A feed, urgent hold, do not erase. 10/17/93. The date was just days before KBEX officially ceased all operations. Maya held the reel, her heart pounding. David Miller, the patched wall, the incident, the missing person rumor, and now an audio reel from Studio A labeled Urgent Hold, dated right before the station died. The pieces weren't just clicking anymore. They were forming a horrifying picture. The signal glitch hadn't been random. It had shown her the epicenter, and the physical evidence was starting to confirm the station's dark secret. The question now was what was on the reel, and what would happen if she tried to find out. The air in the control room felt charged, the silence replaced by an almost inaudible hum. The signal ghost was stirring.
"Okay, Nightcrawlers," Maya said, her voice hushed but electric with a mix of dread and discovery. She held the audio reel up to the camera. Audio reel, Studio A feed, dated October 17th, 1993, right before the station went dark. Coincidence? I think not. The chat exploded with speculation. Leah was frantically searching for information on tape players compatible with the old reel-to-reel format, but finding one operational inside KBEX seemed unlikely. "There's no way to play this here," Maya continued, setting the reel carefully on the dusty console. "But this, combined with the personnel files on David Miller, the patched wall, it's painting a picture." She walked back into Studio A, drawn inexorably towards the patched section of the wall near where the glitch had manifested. The EMF meter in her hand pulsed erratically as she approached it. EMF is spiking again, higher this time, hitting close to 15-20 milligauss right here. It's localized to this spot. Hesitantly, she reached out and touched the rough surface of the patch. Instantly, her Livestream feed stuttered violently. The glitch hit again, harder this time, more prolonged. Not just 2 seconds, but maybe 4 or 5. The grainy, monochrome image of the past overlaid the present. It was the same horrifying scene. David Miller, presumably, being struck down by the shadowed figure with the pipe. But this time, the image lingered. Details emerged from the low-fidelity past. The victim's face, contorted in pain and shock, turned momentarily towards where Maya's camera was positioned in the present. His eyes seemed wide, terrified, locking onto the lens for a fraction of a second before he crumpled. The attacker's face remained obscured, but the sheer brutality of the repeated blows was sickeningly apparent. Then the feed snapped back to the present. Maya, standing frozen, hand still on the wall, face ashen. It happened again. Longer this time. Did you see his face?" "Yes. Oh God, Maya, yes. He looked right at the camera. Get away from the wall." "He saw her. The ghost saw her." "Okay, that wasn't B-roll. That was interactive." "How?" "This is exceeding known signal interference patterns. The persistence, the seeming reactivity. It's like the signal is responding to proximity or a physical interaction." Shaken, Maya stumbled back from the wall, her mind reeling. Interactive? Responding? The implications were terrifying. This wasn't just a passive recording bleeding through. It felt targeted. She retreated to the control room, needing the relative, though still creepy confinement of the smaller space. She picked up the audio reel again, turning it over in her hands. "What's on this?" she murmured, mostly to herself. As her fingers brushed across the handwritten label, Urgent Hold, her secondary shoulder cam feed flickered. On her monitor, she watched in horror as her own image momentarily desaturated, shifting to the same harsh, grainy monochrome aesthetic as the glitch footage. The color drained from her face and clothes, replaced by stark blacks, whites, and grays for a second before snapping back to normal. Simultaneously, her audio feed crackled, and beneath her own voice, another sound layered faintly, a gasp, a choked sob, overlaid with the sharp, distinct thwack of metal hitting something solid. "No," Maya whispered, backing away from the reel. "No, no, no." The chat went into overdrive.
Did you see that? She went black and white. Heard that. Sounded like the glitch audio. Maya, it's affecting your feed now. The bleed-through isn't just showing the past, it's trying to pull you into its signal. It's the broadcasting signal itself. Your live stream is acting like an antenna and maybe like a fuel. It gets stronger when you're actively transmitting near the source points. Leo and the more tech-savvy viewers were piecing it together. The phenomenon wasn't just tied to the location, it was intrinsically linked to electronic signals, particularly the active, high-bandwidth transmission of her live stream. Her presence, amplified by her broadcasting gear, was somehow agitating this latent psychic imprint, this signal ghost, giving it the energy to manifest more powerfully, more interactively. And now, it seemed to be trying to corrupt her signal, overlaying its reality onto hers. It's the broadcasting, Maya realized aloud, the horror dawning. Me being live here, it's making it happen. It's feeding it. She looked around the control room, at the dead monitors, the silent tape machines, the massive console gathering dust. This room and Studio A next door were designed for transmission, for sending signals out into the world. Decades ago, they might have broadcast news, weather, entertainment, but on one fateful day in October 1993, they might have captured something else entirely. A murder. And the energy of that event, the trauma, the violence, perhaps even the victim's final moments had become trapped, imprinted onto the very fabric of the place, waiting for a signal strong enough to wake it up. Her signal. The implications were staggering. Was the entity, the signal ghost, trying to communicate? Was it trying to show the world what happened? Or was it something more sinister? Was it trying to pull her, the source of the energizing signal, into its perpetual horrifying loop? The brief moment her feed turned monochrome felt like a warning shot, a glimpse of assimilation. The past wasn't just bleeding through, it was threatening to overwrite the present. And she was the conduit.
Driven by a terrifying sense of urgency and the dawning realization that the phenomenon centered around broadcasting technology, Maya knew where she had to go next. The station's nerve center. The place where all signals converged before being sent out into the world. The master control room. Following faded signs through a maze of increasingly dilapidated corridors, the air growing heavy with the smell of ozone and decay, she found it. The door was heavy steel, marked Master Control, authorized personnel only. It was unlocked. Pushing it open revealed a room that felt like the heart of the station's technological ghost. It was smaller than the studio control booths, crammed with floor-to-ceiling racks of obsolete equipment, patch bays, waveform monitors, vector scopes, and the hulking gray boxes of transmission gear. Water damage stained the ceiling tiles, and a fine layer of grime coated everything. But beneath the decay, Maya felt it. A low, thrumming energy that made the hairs on her arms stand on end. The EMF meter went wild, buzzing insistently, the readings jumping into high double digits. Okay, chat, this is it. Master Control. If the signal ghost has a source point, this is likely it. Several of the old CRT monitors mounted in the racks flickered weakly, displaying faint static patterns despite clearly having no power connection. The air crackled with palpable static electricity. EMF readings are off the charts, Maze. Be careful. That's not normal background radiation. That's transmission equipment. Even dormant stuff can hold residual charge, but those flickering monitors? Creepy. It feels angry in there, Maze. Maya moved cautiously into the room, her light beam cutting through the electronic graveyard. Unlike the performance-oriented chaos of the studio, this room felt functional, dense with unseen connections. Cables thicker than her arms snaked under raised floor panels and disappeared into conduits. This was where the final signal was shaped, amplified, and beamed out. Near the main transmission rack, amidst the jumble of wires and dust bunnies, she spotted something wedged between two units. A thin, leather-bound logbook. Its cover was warped and stained, but the gold-embossed KBEX logo was still visible. Carefully, she pulled it free. A logbook, she said, blowing dust off the cover. Master Control log. Let's see. She opened it gingerly. The pages were brittle,
filled with handwritten entries detailing transmitter checks, signal routing, network feed recordings. She flipped forward, looking for dates around October 1993. The entries became sparser, notes more hurried. Then she found it. October 17th, 1993. An entry logged in the early evening detailed standard operations. Then a later entry, scribbled frantically in different handwriting, possibly a different pen. 2317. Unscheduled signal disruption, Studio A feed. Audio-video anomaly. 2325. Lockdown Studio A, no access. 2340. Management directive. Erase Studio A record feed immediate. Technical malfunction cited. 2355. Tape S by N AX477B. Studio A feed. Secured by name smudged, illegible. Marked hold, do not erase. Per another name, also smudged. Logged as equipment test. Maya's blood ran cold. "Leo, chat, listen to this." She read the entries aloud, her voice trembling. They knew something happened. They logged an anomaly, locked down the studio, and were ordered to erase the recording, but someone saved it. That reel I found, AX477B, that has to be it. Someone defied the order, hid the tape. The log detailed a deliberate cover-up. The incident wasn't just swept under the rug, it was actively concealed, the evidence order destroyed. David Miller wasn't just missing, he was silenced, his fate hidden within the station's walls and decaying magnetic tape. But who was the aggressor? The log didn't say. As Maya processed this, her eyes scanned the cluttered room again. Her light fell on a specific piece of equipment, an old vectorscope near the main patch bay, its screen dark. Tucked behind it, almost completely hidden, was a small, tarnished silver locket lying in the dust. She picked it up carefully. It was heart-shaped, cheap metal, the kind you'd buy at a mall kiosk. It opened easily. Inside were two tiny, faded photos. One was of a smiling young woman Maya didn't recognize. The other was David Miller. He looked younger, happier, standing awkwardly in a cheap suit. "David Miller," she whispered, holding the locket up to the camera. "This must have been his, dropped during the struggle, or planted." Suddenly, one of the dark monitors directly in front of her flickered violently to life. It didn't show static. It showed the grainy, monochrome image from the glitch, but this time it was horrifyingly clear and focused on the victim, David Miller, as he looked up directly at the camera viewing him in the past, but the gaze felt intensely personal now, directed not just at the historical lens, but through time at her. The monitor then flashed, showing the shadowed attacker raising the pipe, and just before the image cut out, a faint whisper seemed to snake through the static from her audio feed, sounding chillingly like her own name, Maya. She stumbled back, dropping the locket with a clatter. It wasn't just an echo. It wasn't just a replay. It felt aware. It knew her there. It knew her name. The signal ghost wasn't just trapped energy, it was a consciousness, fragmented, imprinted onto the technology, and horrifyingly aware of the new signal illuminating its prison. The locket felt like a key, the logbook a map, and the master control room the heart of the darkness. And she had just provoked it. The low hum in the room intensified, the monitors flickering faster, the air growing bitingly cold. She had the truth, but uncovering it had pushed the signal ghost beyond just manifestation. It was now focusing its terrifying energy directly on her.
"It knows me," Maya stammered, backing away from the flickering monitor, her eyes wide with terror. "Leo, it used my name." "Get out of there, Maya, now! Forget the evidence, just get out!" The chat was a waterfall of panic and horror. "It knows her name, WTF. It's aware. This isn't a haunting, it's an intelligent entity trapped in the tech. Cuff her up, confirmed. She has proof. Grab the logbook and run." Maya instinctively snatched the logbook, shoving it into her backpack alongside the audio reel and locket. Her goal shifted from investigation to survival. She turned to flee master control, but as she reached for the heavy steel door, it slammed shut with a deafening boom that echoed through the small space. The handle wouldn't turn. Locked. Simultaneously, the room erupted. Every dormant piece of equipment flared to life. Monitors burst into showers of static, displaying strobing fragments of the glitch. Miller's terrified face, the glinting pipe, the shadowed attacker, over and over, a nightmarish loop. The transmission racks hummed violently, lights flashing erratically. The air filled with an ear-splitting roar of white noise, mixed with distorted screams, panicked shouts, and the sickening thud of the pipe. The sounds from the hidden audio reel made manifest. Her own livestream feed went completely haywire. On her whisk monitor, she saw her image flickering rapidly between the present, terrified Maya and the grainy monochrome horror of the past event. The audio was an unbearable cacophony, layering the past screens directly over her own panicked gasps. "Let me out!" she screamed, pounding on the steel door, but her voice was swallowed by the electronic tempest. The temperature plummeted, frost forming on the metal racks. The electric charge in the air was so intense, her hair stood on end, and sparks visibly arced between pieces of equipment. Loose ceiling tiles rained down, lights overhead flickered and shattered, plunging the room into strobing chaos illuminated only by the frantic monitors. This wasn't a physical assault. The signal ghost wasn't throwing objects or manifesting physically. It was doing something far more insidious. It was trying to trap her within its signal, within the perpetual broadcast of the murder. On her monitor, the flickering blend of past and present became less distinct. Her image was starting to permanently merge with the grainy monochrome horror of the past event. The edges blurred, the colors bled out, her terrified face momentarily superimposed over Miller's dying moments. The entity's goal became horrifyingly clear: force her to become part of the broadcast, either to perpetually transmit the covered-up tragedy to the world through her modern signal, or worse, to absorb her consciousness, her energy into the static echo, trapping her with it forever. A desperate realization hit Maya. Her broadcast was the anchor. Her live signal, connecting her to Leo and the outside world, was the conduit the entity was using, the energy source it was feeding on, the very thing allowing it to trap her. She had to cut the feed. She had to sever the connection. Fighting the disorienting sensory assault, the strobing lights, the deafening noise, the numbing cold, she fumbled for the broadcasting rig in her backpack. Her fingers were numb, her movements clumsy with panic. She needed to disable the transmitter, break the link. She ripped the main transmission cable connecting her camera setup to the mobile unit. The feed on her wrist monitor instantly froze, then went black with a "signal lost" message. But the chaos in the room didn't stop. If anything, it intensified, as if enraged by the attempt. The entity wasn't just feeding on her outgoing signal, it seemed intrinsically linked to the potential for broadcast within this room, perhaps drawing power from her active equipment itself. She had to go further. She had to disable her gear entirely, or maybe the station's core equipment that was amplifying everything. Her eyes darted around the room, landing on the main transmission rack where the logbook mentioned the signal anomaly originated. With a surge of adrenaline-fueled desperation, she grabbed the heavy EMF meter from her belt. Ignoring the electric sting in the air, she swung the solid metal device like a club, smashing it into the front panel of the humming transmission unit. Sparks flew, glass cracked. She swung again, harder, aiming for the glowing power indicators and thick coaxial cables feeding into it. Metal screamed against metal. A final desperate blow connected with a critical component. There was a loud crackle, a flash of blue light, and the deafening roar of static abruptly ceased. Silence slammed back into the room, broken only by the distant whine of the wind outside and the frantic pounding of Maya's own heart. The monitors went dark. The oppressive cold lessened slightly. The steel door clicked, the lock disengaged. She stood panting in the near darkness, lit only by her headlamp, surrounded by smoking, damaged equipment. Her gear was likely fried. The logbook was safe in her bag, but the connection, the forced broadcast, was broken. She was alone, truly alone in the heart of the dead station. The silence was absolute, terrifying in its suddenness. Maya leaned against a now unlocked steel door of master control, chest heaving, trying to catch her breath. The acrid smell of burnt electronics filled the air. Her ears rang from the previous cacophony. She was alone, plunged into near darkness, her lifeline to Leo and the world severed. The only light was the trembling beam of her headlamp, illuminating the wreckage she had caused. With trembling hands, she pushed the door open and stumbled out into the corridor. She didn't look back. Every instinct screamed at her to escape. She navigated the decaying hallways by muscle memory and headlamp, the logbook, reel, and locket heavy in her backpack, damning evidence of a 30-year-old crime and her own harrowing ordeal. She half expected the glitches to return, the whispers to follow. But there was nothing. Only the sighing wind, the creak of stressed metal, the drip of water somewhere deep within the building's bowels. It seemed that breaking the signal, damaging the court transmission point, had truly silenced the signal ghost, at least for now. Bursting out the warped side door into the pre-dawn chill felt like surfacing from underwater. She didn't stop running until she reached her van, fumbling with the keys, throwing herself inside and locking the doors. She sat there for a long time, shaking uncontrollably. The silence of the van a stark contrast to the sensory hell she had just escaped. The abrupt end of her stream, the chaotic visuals, the horrific sounds, the final desperate moments before the feed cut to black, became an instant online legend. The hashtag KBEX-glitch hashtag exploded. Clips of the final moments, captured by thousands of viewers, went viral across every platform. The debate raged with ferocious intensity. Was it the most elaborate, technically sophisticated hoax ever staged? A desperate cry for help? A genuine, terrifying glimpse into the paranormal fused with technology? Or, as some darker corners of the internet whispered, something far worse? The viral sensation inevitably attracted mainstream attention. News outlets picked up the story. Local authorities, spurred by the online furor and the explicit mention of a potential cover-up related to David Miller, launched a new, albeit reluctant, investigation into the abandoned KBEX station. They found the damaged equipment and master control. They found Maya's discarded, broken EMF meter. They even found the patched section of wall in Studio A. But forensics found no conclusive evidence of a decades-old crime. No body, no definitive proof matching the fleeting, grainy images from Maya's stream. Without the logbook or the audio reel, which Maya kept hidden, her story remained just that, a wild, unverified tale born from a glitchy live stream. Maya never streamed Urbex again. The adrenaline rush was replaced by a chilling trauma. The performer's confidence shattered. She changed her online handles, retreated from the community she had cultivated, haunted by the flickering images, the static whispers, the feeling of the signal ghost trying to overwrite her reality. The sudden fame felt toxic, tainted by the genuine horror she had experienced. Months passed. Maya tried to piece together a semblance of normalcy. She worked a quiet office job, avoided abandoned buildings, and rarely went online. She was editing a personal video project one evening, footage from a hiking trip, mountains and trees, nothing remotely connected to KBEX. As she scrubbed through the timeline on her computer, seeking a specific frame, her screen flickered. For a single, almost imperceptible moment, the vibrant green of the forest vanished, replaced by the harsh, grainy black and white texture of the KBEX glitch. A flash of static, a fleeting afterimage of terrified eyes looking out from the screen. Then it was gone. Maya froze, her blood turning to ice. It wasn't just the station. It wasn't just the broadcast. The signal, the echo, the ghost in the machine, somehow a fragment of it had latched onto her, followed her home, embedding itself in her digital life. She stared at the screen, waiting, listening. Was it just a random computer error? Or was the dead air from KBEX still trying to find a frequency? The screen remained normal. Silence filled the room. But Maya knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that the signal might be lost, but the ghost was still out there, waiting in the static between channels, forever trying to complete its forced broadcast. Enjoyed the story? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.